I feel after that conversation about like how I helped you get here, I feel like I have helped in some sort of way create this podcast. So I'm very proud.
Yeah.
You're welcome. No, I'm just kidding. I won't take credit for it, but
Welcome to the Marketing Team of One podcast, where we have conversations about the issues one-person marketing teams face when trying to meet their goals with limited time and budgets.
We got Jill Felty here. And Jill, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what you're all about?
I am a copywriter and StoryBrand certified guide. I write personality-based copy that makes customers choose you.
Yeah. I've been really excited to talk to you because, especially here on the podcast, I've talked to you many times outside of that. But
yes.
like, I think you're really good when you talked about that brand personality thing. I think that I think you have a lot to say and a lot to help out, a lot of ways to help out people in our audience, you know, who are really trying to do it all themselves and want to inject some personality into their brand, but might not know how or might struggle with it a little bit. So I'm excited to talk through some of that and things. I mean, I'd love to know from you, like starting out, like what drew you to copywriting? Is there something that really kind of like a formative moment?
There's always those kids who like, oh, I'm going to write a book or whatever. And that was always the back of my mind. A little bit of writing a book. At one point, I really wanted to direct film and go to film school, and that didn't happen. But like, there's all these really big ideas of like, okay, the common thread here is story.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a job at a nationwide nonprofit, kind of worked there for a while, and in that time, wrote a lot of fundraising copy.
Okay.
And that was where I really like started liking it. Like, this is really fun. Specifically, I'd write these newsletter type things to our monthly donors who would mail in checks. And there's like all of these kind of generally older audience who would mail in checks.
Yeah.
You know, this is like 15, 16. So, oh my God.
So a lot of the world had moved on from checks at this point.
I guess that's all I'm saying is like, people aren't really mailing in checks, but we would. And so along with that, we'd have this like note from the CEO, and that was me writing it, which was, I thought as a new college graduate, I wasn't even graduated at that point. Actually, I was a junior in college working at this nonprofit writing as the CEO. I'm, 20 something years old. And I'm like, I'm writing as this old white man who is, I don't even talk to the guy.
Wow.
I never interviewed him. Like
unbelievable, really.
I would just make something up.
Would he go back to the CEO to like read and review or anything? Or
no.
Wow.
No. And this is like a big nonprofit too. Like, someone should have been reading those. If we're being totally honest. I mean, I did have my direct like supervisor who was reading them and saying like, yeah, and he's, fine. He probably knows enough. I'm sure he talked to the CEO. I hope. But I was writing these from scratch. And now that I look back and now that we're talking about it, I think how funny that is that like I'm writing these. They're super short. How many people actually read them? Probably very few. And it's, the older generation who would totally believe that this CEO was, writing these heartfelt letters
Wow.
asking for a monthly donation. And that was really where I got my start in like just kind of storytelling. And it's so silly and so little, but now that I look back, I'm like, wow, that is really
so it's
where
almost
it
like you had to almost instinctually try and capture the voice of that CEO
Yes.
and write as that, like
Yes.
from right out of the gate.
And absolutely knowing nothing, I'll say it was a radio station, so every once in a while the CEO would talk on the radio, and so that was the only real interaction that I had with him was what I would hear him say on the radio. Wow. And so I think the voice was just so generic. It was if I read them now, I'd probably be so mortified that I wrote these things, but like it was just kind of like pie in the sky, like, oh, thanks for your donation. And the seasons, it was always the seasons are changing.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you had some little things you could pull from. Yeah.
So yeah, but that was really where I started, and then at some point I was just kind of like, I'm kind of done writing these monthly letters.
Yeah.
I had written a few fundraising, like our bigger fundraising letters, and we would raise, $25,000, like big things. And I was like, wow, I could really be doing something different, doing something more, making a bigger impact. And yeah, this thing is really cool that I'm doing right now, but I think my time here is up. I decided that if I can make this big of a difference in a nonprofit, a big nonprofit, if I could take that same, not the same scale, but the same skills and the same intention that I had writing all of these other things that would raise a lot of money, like what if I could take that and apply it to a small business?
Kind of spreading it wider, right? And so instead of real big depth with the one nonprofit, that you could kind of sprinkle it out and go wider with people, right?
Yeah. At the time when I left, I thought, oh, this is going to be social media. I'm going to do this in social media.
Yeah.
And so when I started my business, it was all about social media management. And then, a year later, after my business has been running for a while, I realized I hate social media. I hate managing it. None of the clients are wanting to pay for someone to manage it. Everybody is bringing in their cousin's
the nephews. Yeah.
To manage it for them. Yeah, maybe that was me not, providing enough value to them, but either way, it was not for me.
It's so hard because I think we could start our own anti-social fan club, or that might not be the right word for it.
Anti-social social media fan club.
Yeah. Like, I think it's probably really hard, right? And you saw it firsthand, right? You're mostly working with small businesses, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, I think it was a conversation we had before where there's to intimately know what's going on in that business, and to have it takes a lot.
Yes.
And so like the economics don't work out, right? Like you being the copywriter need to get a certain amount to make it worth your time, and you have to hope that it's worth that much to the business owner to pay that, right?
Yeah.
Like in its purest form, do you like social media, or is it the doing social media for others that?
I love the idea of doing social media.
Yeah, the idea, right?
So if you go on to Feltyco's Instagram, you will see that we have not posted in months.
Yeah.
And one, I am my own marketing team of one.
Yep.
I don't have the time. I also have a child under one, and so obviously that has not been a priority in this last year.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of inspiration for, that would be a good post, or this or that. I just haven't had the time.
Yeah.
And so that's answering part of your question.
Yeah.
I love the idea of it.
Yep.
The idea of doing it. But doing it for other people too, on top of that, I did not build the systems within my business to get the information that I needed in a timely manner. And this is like kind of on me, but from the organization. Also, the organizations that were my clients that were attracted to doing business with me and me with them, they were not set up. They were not prepared to hire someone to outsource it.
Yep.
One, they didn't have the money to outsource it to someone who really knew what they were doing, because I was not charging that much. But they also didn't they didn't really know what that entailed.
Yeah.
One specifically was an e-commerce brand who was making good money doing this. They should have had the systems in place.
I like using the word could in a lot of those sentences.
Yeah,
They could have, but they just decided not to. There's something else.
Yeah, they could have.
Yeah.
But I think they had a marketing team of one.
Yeah.
Who that was not a priority. They were running so many promotions, and this is when I decided no more e-commerce. This is not my thing. They were constantly running new promotions, constantly running new like things and launching new products and new versions of different products that their marketing team of one like only had so much capacity.
Yeah.
And so while photo shoots and designing graphics and all of these things could have been a priority and really should have been a priority for an e-commerce brand.
Yep.
They didn't have new photo shoots regularly. They didn't have new content. And so I was constantly trying to reuse content.
There's only so many ways you can do that, right?
Yeah. So pulling from this photo, from the bank of photos that they had. So this is just one example of like, they just weren't set up. They didn't have the systems, and I didn't have the systems set up to help them understand what they needed. And after they were like, hey, we're bringing this in-house, I was like, great. Please take it in-house. Yes, this is, half of my income right now, but I need a change.
Yeah.
And so that was ultimately, to come back to your original question.
Yeah.
That was ultimately when I was like, okay, I have this StoryBrand certification. I'm going to build this playground and not a prison.
Yeah.
In my business. And what am I really good at is writing, going back to just writing.
Yeah.
Because the captions, they're fun. They're fine. But there's so much more that I could be writing. And I just felt like my potential was just untapped. And I'm not a project manager. I'm not a social media manager. This does not come naturally to me where I thought it really did before.
Yeah.
So I changed.
And so now it's, is it mostly writing content for websites, blogs, websites, and such?
Most of my clients come for website wireframe copywriting.
Yeah.
Those are the biggest projects that we have. And then just below that is brand messaging.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is, and then they learn what it is, and they know that they immediately need it. It's
such a funny thing. It's not something that most people aren't going to, when they need it. Well, one, they don't know they need it.
Yeah.
Two, they're not going to Google it. Like how to, like it's a weird thing to try and sell. Yeah. It's I did want to loop back because you mentioned being a StoryBrand certified guide, and we've mentioned StoryBrand in a couple other episodes, but I don't think we've ever really covered some of the what it's about and everything. I think it'd be great to hear from you. Like, what is StoryBrand? How does that help with how does that help them?
Big and enigmatic thing that's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. StoryBrand is that 7-part story framework for marketing. So ultimately, you're taking your overall message and you're putting it into the perspective of a story framework. So your customer, who's the hero of the story, has a problem. Then they meet a guide or your business. That guide has a plan, gives them a plan, calls them to action, and that ends in success or failure. So what's at stake in the story?
Yeah.
If any of those pieces don't exist, you kind of miss the whole story in and of itself. When you invite your customer into a story, it becomes really engaging. People are more likely to listen, because if you just talk about your business, well, why should somebody care? When we put your customer as the hero of this story, you're essentially telling them that it matters because you're important. So when we frame it by saying, customer first and using a customer first mentality, you can communicate a lot more and why your business matters outside of just, hey, we sell heating and air.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. the more I think about the StoryBrand framework and everything, I think one of the most ingenious parts of it is, and it's very right there in the very beginning, is that businesses for a long time, if they just talk about, hey, look at how great we are and everything, that's a very common thing that a lot of, people build their brand about. It's like, hey, how awesome we are, right? The big trick with StoryBrand is this no, if you're talking about yourself the whole time, no one's going to want to listen, right? So like if you can switch it so you're putting the focus on somebody else, and in this case, the customer, there's a lot of other things that come from that. So it's like that first switch really helps unlock a lot of other messaging details.
Yes. I'm laughing because to say like, oh, talk about how great we are when in business, it blows my mind that businesses are still doing that. So there is a radio commercial, and I don't know if you've heard it, right? A local radio commercial. And I don't listen to the radio all that often, but every once in a while I'm in the car and this commercial comes on and it grates on my nerves because it is doing just that. Yeah. It is positioning this company as heroes in history.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So they're comparing their company to Abraham Lincoln, to
I think I've heard this. I couldn't. It's scratching something in the back of my mind here, like that. I think I've heard it.
And it is so bad.
Yeah.
And it grates on my nerves, and it makes me laugh every time because it's like, I think that you're trying to make your customer the hero. I think. But
maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is really bad. It is a textbook example.
Of what not to do, right?
Of what not to do. In my opinion, I mean, maybe some other professional marketers out there would be like, no, this is really good. And maybe it sparks some sort of like inspiration in their customer. And maybe they found that research. But I would venture to say that they have not done that much research. They just love this. They love doing it.
It does.
They think it's brilliant.
It kind of reeks of the CEO having some big grand epiphany when and nope, I want this. This is what needs to happen, and not listening to a marketing book, like any recent marketing book. It doesn't have to be like everything is predicated about meeting your customer where they're at.
Yes. Yes. It absolutely reeks of the CEO having a grand idea.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about like brand personality and like tricks that you've kind of learned over the years. Like we worked with you on our website for page design, and I think you had some fun.
I did? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, some fun questions that you asked us up front and everything. But like I'd love to know what you think about, how you think about personality when it comes to copy, and how you interject that into your work.
I want to preface this answer by saying that I have learned really valuable lessons about personality and copywriting in general from really wonderful copywriters that I've worked with and for. Obviously, these aren't new things that are out there. Anybody can kind of find these things, but I wouldn't have the ability that I have today without Jesse Congleton, Katie Lantic, and Angie Schultz. They're wonderful. And so a lot of these things that I'll talk about, I've learned directly from them.
That's great, yeah. I mean, everybody's standing on the shoulders of giants.
And so I definitely don't want to stand here and be like, I came up with these things.
This is my idea and my idea alone of how to do this. Yeah.
So, but those are the three wonderful copywriters that I constantly look to for just awesome copy and inspiration. So, back to your question, starting to add personality, I think the questions that I asked you guys kind of had to do with well, who is this person? If page design was a person, who are they? So not just personality traits that they might have if we put a name to them, but if you had a celebrity spokesperson, who would that person be? Who would be a really good representative of your brand?
Did you have one where if you were an actor, which actor would you be?
I, for a long time, was getting Ryan Reynolds a lot.
Oh, yeah. Everybody wants. I mean, I want to be Ryan Reynolds. So.
And so I had this like really irreverent kind of like just pocketbook of like a bunch of content that I was like pulling from.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I saw a new Mint Mobile ad or a new like Aviation Gin ad, I would just throw it into a doc.
Okay.
And then anytime some, specifically some car auto detailer in Texas came to me and said, I want to sound like Ryan Reynolds, that's what we did.
Nice. Okay.
So that is probably the most telling question that I asked.
Yeah.
Just because when we apply a brand to like a celebrity, there's tons and tons of information on the internet, tons of videos of these celebrities that we can watch and say like, okay, when you say this, when you say you want to sound like Ryan Reynolds, what does that actually mean? Like, which bits of it, which bits of his shtick do you want to incorporate? And so sometimes it's, I don't really love the self-deprecation, but I really love the sarcasm. Like, okay, how do we do that?
Yeah.
So we can go on and we can type into YouTube whatever we're looking for and find thousands of hours of interviews with this one person who you want to sound like. And so that's kind of how I've started.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that part's a lot of fun. And then we have like the very like pie in the sky types of thing. Like if you had an office like an ideal office building, what would it look like? What kind of decorations would be in there? So there's questions like that kind of give some sort of idea into the feel of your copy. It's not always necessarily like which words are we going to say, but how do you want your customer to feel?
Yeah.
So those are the probably my easiest questions to ask.
Totally.
And then we can get into deeper kind of thoughts about what your brand is and how to develop a voice to it with things like core values. What do you care about as a business? What do you deeply care about? What is your business built on that makes you different than, some other?
You might have 5 other competitors in 5 square miles.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like what differentiates you?
Yeah.
In there. Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes we offer 100% refunds within 100 days or whatever of service, which is great. But why do you do that? Like there has to be some sort of why behind everything. It's like a little kid, like, oh, but why? And you really do want to keep digging because there's a core value in that. And ultimately that core value is going to shape how you say something, what you say, because you can say like, we do, we'll give you a full refund within 100 days if X, Y, Z. You can say that 100 different ways.
Yeah.
If you get down to the why
you're offering,
then you can be ultra specific, and that's gonna, I think, really bring out a lot of personality that other people won't have.
You're not going to get a good personality if you're just skating across the surface, right? There's so much depth that's required.
Yes.
To really unearth that. You almost have to be a little bit of an archaeologist when you're working with different clients, right? Because you have to be able to like
an archaeologist
keep digging.
Or a therapist.
A little bit of both, right? Right?
Yeah. Yes. There's absolutely a tone of some sort of therapy that has to happen.
Yeah.
Because you're digging into that. Like, what is the purpose of this? Why does it matter?
Yeah. I'm guessing a lot of these people maybe haven't been challenged in that way too. You're confronting people with new things that they haven't had to think about.
Well, I send that initial questionnaire that I sent you guys, and some of which has those questions. When they type it into questionnaire, they're trying to get it done as fast as possible and get it off to me.
Yep.
And so when we have our kickoff call and we're really like trying to mine into that, like, again, what does it matter? I think a lot of the times it's like, well, we do it because our competitor does it.
Yeah.
Because we have to. It's industry standard.
Yeah.
And it's like...
That doesn't give me much to work with, right?
Okay, but why is it important?
Yeah.
And are your competitors talking about why it's important?
Yeah.
Because ultimately why it's important is what's going to set you apart. If you're communicating why it's important and all your competitors are just saying we do this, like
that's going to stand apart because
Yeah.
it's going to make it more relatable
Yes.
to their customers. They're not all customers. There might not be some that relate to that one
Yes.
reason why, but those that do are going to feel a deeper
and they're going to
connection.
stick with you.
Yeah.
Because there was transparency there where other places there wasn't. And transparency is like, okay, we could have an entire podcast episode just on transparency in today's day and age.
Yeah.
And the importance of that.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about the rise of AI, and especially as it gets applied to copywriting. I think copywriting has become one of the things that people think like, oh, I don't need a copywriter. AI can write things for me.
Yeah.
But I think you're missing out on transparency is one of those things. A robot's not going to give you that transparency and everything. How do you feel about AI? And like, is it a tool that you can make use of?
I often compare it to like a project management system for people who are like, I don't want to do this. Or the project management system is going to give you a tool that will allow you to work better, more efficient. And I think that AI is in that same vein. Like, it's going to allow you to work more efficient, and it may write better than you if you're not a writer. But there isn't, it's not going to produce a worthy product. And maybe at one point it will, but as it stands today, you are going to get the amalgamation of all of the things that it has already been fed. And so therefore, you are going to get the information that's already readily available out there, maybe written a little bit differently, but it's not going to be for your business.
Yeah.
It is going to be written fine, maybe, but it's not going to be for your business.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time, like, it's only as good as the prompts that you serve it. And yeah, that's true, but then you're also serving it the things that it will learn from for everyone else.
Yeah. I think that the ease of use on there, and there's literally no barrier to entry to having people just crank out things. So that's where it's even more important that you can put your own, something that's unique to you, right? And I guess transparency is one of those things that you could add into that, right? Like, and a voice and a personality to it, right? Those are that's the special sauce. So
you can't put like, what are my core values into AI? Like, these are a few things that are important to me. I'm going to put them into AI and get it.
I'd love to try that. I would love to see what it spits out.
I would also love to see. But
we care about our customers. We do good work. I'm just trying to think of the cliches.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's like, okay, anybody can say that. Like, what does it matter? Again, we're coming back to, what does it matter? Like, people, it's that old adage, like, oh, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that AI, while a really valuable tool, is not going to get you something that will really set you apart in the marketplace and will be actually really valuable to you down the road. Yeah. It's going to sound like everybody else. And how many times have you jumped onto a blog, jumped onto social media and can see right away this has been written by AI?
I think so many people are tuned to it now. People who spend a lot of their day online are completely tuned to it. One of my favorite things is to look at Reddit threads. Yes. And when somebody tries to be helpful by putting that question into AI and then just spitting out the AI answer, like to answer somebody. Yeah. And then the thread of comments of all these people going, thanks AI, thanks robot. You know, like there's a filter that people's are getting more and more tuned to.
Yes, absolutely. And anything that says, in today's digital world, in today's ever-changing society, in today's, like, it's like, oh my, Can AI not come up with anything more creative than in today's ever-changing world landscape?
You hit a gusher here, and that one of our other episodes we talk about overused buzzwords and phrases and everything, and that one in particular was one that we hit on. But I'd love to know, are there others that you any overused phrases that you see a lot that really kind of, you know, you're just over?
I think that's the biggest one right now, because it just, I saw it so much just this morning when I was writing, as I was like, you know, getting a very crappy first draft from AI for an email that I'm writing for a client. I saw that the tool that I use spits out 3 different versions of something. So, not ChatGPT, but, and in each version of that email written completely differently, there was one phrase of, in today's ever-changing market, in today's constantly evolving landscape. It's like, good God.
It's
How are we not seeing through this immediately? I also think like the overuse of adjectives is like crazy.
Yeah.
We don't need 50 adjectives. Thank you.
Yeah.
AI.
Like what could, brevity is not AI's thing.
No.
You're not going to get
And
down to that soul of it.
How many times you write this in a pithy voice?
I think they must have struck the word pithy from the vocabulary there. Like, I don't know if they know what that means or anything like that. Yeah.
And that's one thing that like I'm constantly working on myself, is like, how many words can I cut out of this sentence that I wrote?
Yeah.
And brevity, and like, I love how short and sweet I can write things in as few words as possible. How do we communicate this idea? And I think that that's really important. But you can't get that from AI. No. You just can't.
No. That reminds me of you've probably seen that meme where they talk about how all through school they're telling you how to write more. You have to write 8 pages, and now I've got to figure out how to write this in 1 sentence. You know, and it's a huge challenge, like to convey that message and not be overly verbose and lose people, especially when you're talking about marketing copy. Like,
absolutely.
Distill it down. I think that's the hardest thing.
Look at any of Apple's ads.
Yep.
I saw one today that had no adjectives at all. Just shot on iPhone 17, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it said. And it was the cover of Rolling Stone. It's like, that's it. That's the ad. Like, 1,000%.
Yeah. It's
boiled down to how many words? 5?
I guess you could say they're coasting a little bit too. They've got such a brand recognition, and everyone there's nothing to overcome in there, that they could say something so simple.
Yeah.
But knowing it and not forcing it, and to go too far beyond, that's where there's true expertise is in that, right?
And you can see it through all their ads. You know, it's not just the iPhone ads. Like any Apple ad, anytime you log on to their website, anytime they've launched a new product, it's 4 words or less often.
Like that's
in their header.
That's always amazed me. And like personally, I've strived to be able to do that, and that feels hard.
Well,
really hard.
I remember the ad was light, period, ning fast. And it's like, you're communicating in that statement, you're communicating weight of the product.
Yep.
Easy to tote around for a college student, and it's a super fast.
Yeah.
It's not slow. It's not bogged down with anything. It is exactly what you need. Like, it is. And that's such a pure ad. Like,
it's really, the more, it's chef's kiss, right?
Yes.
Like, the more you look, the more you peel it back, and a lot of people might not even notice it, but like the word, like when you look at what a lot of other people put out there and try and put out there for these things, it's expertise. Like,
I had a client say like, "Oh, I want that.
Yeah.
I want Apple." And in my mind, I'm like, you have to pay me a lot more money.
It's a lot. There's so much. Yeah.
You know how many people are working on that. You know how many iterations of that they had. I mean, I want to think that they have some genius that just like, here's a big old light bulb and here are the things. But these things don't just come to people.
No.
It's not a Don Draper moment.
No. If life was only like Mad Men, you know, like that there was a Don Draper at every company that could do that.
Yeah.
One thing I want to talk to you about, you've done something on your website as a fan of comedy and well done comedies, I think you've done such a interesting job of like relating specific shows to different parts of brand messaging, a lot of like StoryBrand stuff.
Yeah.
Just like you talked about Ryan Reynolds earlier,
Yes.
I think he's been an expert at humor and marketing and mixing those together. But I think you've done a really fun job with that on your website. I'd love to just hear where it kind of came from. And
I am so proud of this. I love television. I think that episodic shows are just so fun because they take these things and they go on for seasons. It's more than just a couple of hours. Like you're taking us on the story of years. And it's just really fun to like do life alongside these characters in a way. Yeah. Which seems so silly in some ways because you're like, they're not real. Yeah. But you become like, The Office is a prime example. People mark their life with like specific episodes of The Office. Mm-hmm. And there's this chokehold that The Office has on every fan. Totally. And so I think that I have done a lot of watching of television. Yeah, right. Period. Which is, again, why we kind of talked about Mad Men. Yep, exactly. I love Mad Men. I just think the stories are awesome stories. But I love The Office. I love just short little sitcom comedies. Mm-hmm. And I love to laugh. And so I was thinking about how do I communicate the StoryBrand framework in a different way that's true to me that would also help people understand what it would be like to work with me. I'm not a serious person. And while I have very serious clients, I would like them to know up front that your calls with me are going to be a delight.
I think you checked that off big time in this approach that you put there. Yeah.
So I thought if I were to do something like these TV shows, how would I apply it to the StoryBrand framework? And so that was kind of like how I came up with these things. And one of the ones that I'm most proud of is, what do Jan's problems in The Office have to do with your business? Yeah.
Can you tease people a little bit about that and make them like, what would they want to read out? Like, if you're going to give people a little.
So for specifically the Jan episode, yeah. If you know The Office, you know that Jan talks a lot about her problems. Yes. And so what it has to do with your business is that you should also talk about not your problems, but the problems of your customers. Yeah. And so go read it. I'm very proud of it.
Like the takeaway would be like, find the Jan that you're helping in your business and mine Jan for all of the problems that you can.
Yes. And then talk about those problems. Yeah. And talk about how you solve those problems. Right. Offer solutions. That's the number one. Offer the solutions that you have. Yeah. Because if you just talk about the problems, that's annoying.
All the time. Nobody. Yeah. That's why Jan gets little wearing on people, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Then we also have, what's at stake in your business. So, each again, you can go through each blog post, but each of them has like a very specific theme that ties to a piece of the StoryBrand framework?
I think there's a golden age of sitcoms that probably got kicked off by The Office and how.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think you've captured almost all of the greatest hits in each one of those blog posts.
Thank you. Yeah, Superstore definitely is along that same theme, but the writer was on The Office, or the team that created The Office too. So it's like you really see those, like all of the little fingers that have spread, and all the careers that really have been made by The
like
Office.
a small few.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of fascinating.
It's really, really fun. Really fun. And like you find yourself, I don't know, maybe you don't, but I do. I find myself rooting for those people. Like, oh my gosh, he created this. I'm going to go watch it.
I'm going to go check that out too.
Yeah, because it was really good, and I want this to succeed, or I want him to succeed, or I want her to succeed. So we do in our household find ourselves doing that. Like, oh my gosh, they created something else.
I could go on and on about comedy because I'm just a huge comedy nerd, but I do feel like it's kind of tapered off. I don't know if there's as much as there used to be.
There certainly isn't one. Well, okay. Apple TV, I think, has a couple of really good ones. Trying is quite good. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's very British humor. Okay. Very dry. And it's about a couple who can't get pregnant. And so it's their journey to adoption. But it's really, really funny. And for me, it was really relatable. I found it when I was trying to get pregnant. And so it was very personal and like this really funny kind of like self-deprecating, I'm going to cry, but I'm also going to laugh.
I think Apple TV's done a really good job of like stamping like some, at least especially on the more comedic stuff. Yes. There's a heart. There's something there.
The Ted Lasso.
The Ted Lasso effect on a lot of those things.
I think that's probably the best comedy that's been out there in a while. Yeah. And I feel like I absolutely. Which again, I've also referenced in my blog series. Go check it out.
Yeah. Back to the personality thing. I think that was such a, you should be proud of what you did there, because I think it totally accomplished exactly what you were looking to do, right? Like get some of your personality out there. Yeah. And what better way to do that than use something that's very relatable to a lot of people. Yeah. Like every one of these shows, they're good. They it's a common touchstone for you and you could that helps set your personality for everything you did.
And if it's not for you, then we might not be a good fit. Like if that's like not your flavor, then you're probably not going to choose to work with me. So that's okay. It's mutual, and you can go find somebody who really is going to be a better fit for you.
Yeah. Especially with what you're doing there, it can and should be fun, right? Like it can. Maybe there's some parts of it that are a little bit of a slog, as you're trying to get through. But especially when you're talking to people on the front end and you're helping them realize things about their business, like maybe they've been so in deep on it they haven't really seen. Yeah. And being able to have those aha moments with people and then to see that excitement, and it kind of it can build on itself.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
And but if you start out not being it's going to be awful.
And I will be your ultimate hype girl. Like when those moments, like you said, they kind of like build off of each other, and they really do. Like when you figure something out and I helped you do that, I am freaking so excited. Yeah. And I will sit there and be like, yeah, we're gonna, and so like I want you to be excited, and I will be excited with you. Yeah. And that's just who I am.
But you've done a great job leading with that.
Yeah.
And
I hope so.
letting everybody know. No, I think putting it on your sleeve and owning it is a really smart thing. And I don't know that a lot of people do that. I don't think a lot of businesses do that. I think maybe it's too courageous. Maybe they're trying to play to too many people. They don't have that thought that there's a tribe for everybody. Like that there's not everything's going to be for everybody. Yeah. Right. And like, I think if you can accept that and know that you're going to have much more meaningful relationships when you have that
Yes.
shared ideology or shared thoughts or shared outlook on life.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
it's gonna be so much better for everybody involved.
Yeah. And I have clients who have come back time and time again because I feel like I'm bragging on myself, but they say like, I just like being on a call with you.
Yeah.
And you should like being on the calls with like the people that you're working with. And like, I don't know, life is way too short to be like, and I feel like the need to preface this, not everybody has the privilege to do that. And I feel very, very grateful to.
Yeah.
But if I had to be in somewhere else, like I would want to make this fun for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I hope that if you hate your job, I am at least a little bit of sunshine in your day.
If you're this solo marketer and you feel like there's something that's off or you're having trouble getting some alignment on what your copy is, or more importantly, like your brand messaging, you might not think of it as brand messaging off the top, but like, I think it's really important to get some outside perspective in that, those types of things, right? If you're too close to it, you might not make the best decisions or something. It's really helpful to have somebody on the outside. How do you approach this? So what's your process for trying to help them craft their messaging?
The first step that we would do, like whatever project that we're doing, it's best to have some sort of brand message baseline.
Yep.
Because ultimately you want some sort of true north that you're going to drive all messaging to. So we'd start with a brand message guide. We're going to build out that 7-part framework by using a questionnaire. We'll send you a questionnaire. Then we have a 90-minute call that can feel like a therapy session, like we've said, where we really dig into some of your answers and we ask more questions like why, how, what does it matter? All the things that we've already talked about. And then I run with it. I take that and I write whatever we're working on, usually, again, for the brand message first. I usually like to deliver it on a live call where we walk through each piece and we go through a couple rounds of feedback. But that first round is always live because the collaboration and the live feedback, the live response from you is so important to me to figure out, like, one, the rounds of revision goes a lot quicker when we can work together on this rather than going back and forth in an email. But if you can get on a call and really like knock through some of that first round of feedback just on a call, which is usually, we get a good chunk of it done on that, in a 60-minute call. Then they get to sit with it for a while, make sure that everything's right, everything's sitting right. One more round of feedback if needed, and then we really start implementing everything else from there. And essentially it's just rinse and repeat. It's not always a 90-minute kickoff call.
Yeah.
But any project is going to start with some sort of kickoff.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much opportunity for collaboration in this process. Like, we are not going to write your brand message just through a little questionnaire. Like, that's just not going to happen. No. I need to see you on a call. I need to hear you talk about these things. I need to ask you deeper questions, because it's like, you can give me that questionnaire, but that's basically putting it through ChatGPT. You're going to get some stale, stiff message because your answers or your prompts, which are going to be the same thing, it's not going to be as good as if you're going to be on a live call interacting with someone who's really taking your business to heart.
Yep.
And seeing it from an outside perspective that you never have the opportunity. Again, you're too close to it if you're just sitting there writing it on your own. I
think if you're adverse or hesitating to do that live call and that live interaction, the phrase that comes to mind is garbage in, garbage out, right? Like you're not going to get the desired result if you're not willing to sit there. There's so many. As much as a lot of people out there probably want to think that they're great communicators over textual communication, whether it's emails or texts or whatever, I don't think they are. Like, I think there's a very small percentage of people who can communicate what they really feel or what they really mean in an email.
Yeah.
And there's so many other cues that you can pick up on when you're interviewing people, right? That you can like body cues, the way they respond to some of your questions, you know, like
you took a deep breath before you answered that question. Tell me more about why you did. Like literally it's questions like that like, oh, well, you know, you dive in deeper that way. Like, oh, well, we've been thinking about this for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to answer it, but that was the best that I could.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that allows me so much more like space and room to ask more questions to help you. Like, this is why people go to therapy.
It absolutely is, right? Yeah. Like, yeah, can you imagine I know there's probably services out there where you can text for therapy, but it's probably not going to be nearly as effective, and you're going to take way longer sending messages and reading messages back and forth.
Way longer. The speed with which we can work is way different, and you're gonna no.
And it's like that. I mean, you're talking about 2.5 hours of time with you to solve big problems with messaging and clearing up a lot of it. Like, because I'm going to abstract things out of like specific StoryBrand kind of buckets and stuff like that. But you're talking about the customer, like who is this customer? What drives them? You know, what do they want? What do they need? What are problems that they solve? Right? What happens at the end? Like what's some value that they get from working with you, and having people describe all of that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and you can cut this out if you want to, but our conversations when we were writing the page design brand message, those conversations really helped you go like hard into this. Our core audience is the marketing team of one. You may have figured it out a little bit beforehand, but I remember having conversations that were like, oh no, it is the marketing team of one. This is who we're talking to.
I think we had an inkling for a while that some of our best clients were these people that were trying to do it all themselves. They did have the benefit of knowing that they couldn't do it all themselves, and they had bosses who were allowing extra budget to be able to help get help in the areas, and they could strategically apply that where it was needed. But no, I don't think we had fully firmed up that was exactly who we were messaging to with everything. Yeah. And I think you did help us unlock that.
I think there was a lot of conversations where we're like, oh, well, what about this client? What about this client? What about this client? But once you saw that brand message with that marketing team of one in writing, it was like, oh, okay.
So many like pointing to something that was written going, yes, that is it.
Yeah.
I love this. And like, I think that wouldn't have come without us talking this stuff out and you asking the deep questions about it. But now we have this messaging guide that we know very clearly, we know who our customer is, we know what their needs are, we know what their pain points are. And we even talked about words that we didn't want to use all the time.
Yeah.
And like words we should use and words we don't want to use all the time. And that's so helpful, especially if you're trying to do everything yourself and write things out. And like sometimes just having those things written down and be able to look at it and go, oh yeah, I was stuck, but this helped. Maybe there's just a log jam of rocks in your head, and removing that one helped everything flow or something.
And that outside perspective, I don't know how to communicate the value of outside perspective when you feel stuck.
Yep.
There is someone else out there who can help you air out the stale thoughts, work through those, because I think we talked earlier today, not on this podcast, offline, about someone who just helped you see something with so much more clarity.
Yep. Because
he wasn't in it every day.
I think if you're the solo marketer and building a case, pitching to the boss or something like that the return on that investment of yes, it will cost money, yes, but that outside perspective is huge and it's going to pay dividends far longer than if we're middling through in trying to do a lot of these things yourself or repeating the same errors or something like that.
Yeah.
That outside perspective is enormous.
There is a, and I'm going to say an onslaught of interns, going back to kind of social media, who are providing stupid social media strategy. And I'm gonna quote, air quote, strategy.
Yeah.
But it's working to all of these companies because they're these fresh young people who have ideas and they say like, hey, I want to try this. And they're an outside perspective. And I say that they're stupid because they're silly things like I'm thinking of one account in particular. It's like a sparkling water brand or something. And this intern's entire marketing strategy is just smashing cans and of their product, which I think is, why would you waste product?
Yeah.
But the joke is like, oh, this person, and I don't know if she's an intern, but like she has brought in this fun, engaging new way to market their product, to get the word out about it. And it's purely, brand awareness. Are people buying it? I don't know. Yeah. I have not. It has not led to a sale for me, but I've seen them. And she's smashing these cans in all these different ways, weird ways. She's taking comments and like saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that next. And so it's like a really unique way, but it's this other way, this way of not getting an outside opinion, but somebody within your own organization who has a seemingly really silly idea and just giving them the space to try something.
Yeah.
And so maybe you, as the marketing team of one, are the outside perspective in some ways.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's, hiring an intern.
Or maybe just talking to somebody in accounting or something like that, right? Like you might have some gold in the organization already who maybe hasn't had a chance to think about these, but maybe they have some interesting feedback, like customer service, right? They're talking to customers all the time. Like if you interview some of the staff there and just get a little bit of the outside perspective there, it's got to help.
Yeah, yeah. Mike Michalowicz has tons of books just on this. I think Fix This Next is one that's coming to mind specifically, but like talking to people inside so that you can ultimately make your business better.
What do you think are some signs that you've seen or symptoms that people come to you at, like where they know that they need copy, they need help with copy?
Well, let me ask you this. Why did you hire me? I mean, you're not a marketing team of one necessarily because you have a whole entire team behind you.
Yeah.
But why did you hire me?
Gosh,
I guess why did you hire me, but why did you hire a copywriter?
It was a big acknowledgement of a weakness, right? Like I know that I'm not the greatest copywriter, right? So like it's this weird, it's the worst thing from a client. I know it when I see it type thing. Like I identify with that when it comes to copy. And so I know there's a thing there. I know there's an ideal to hit. I don't know the path to get there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one part of it. Like just not having the repetitions. Like going back to your experience, at the nonprofit, right? You had a lot of reps writing everything and that's not my background. I've come upon it more recently, the importance of copy. Yeah. We just looked around and was like, you know what? We need some skill. I think the outside perspective was another huge thing too. Like for me personally, I can overthink things a lot. I can think about the deeper connections between a bunch of things and I can get kind of like stuck in
on
there.
Your little hamster wheel of thoughts.
So having the therapist side of it, like to be able to talk to somebody and sit and get all that stuff out there. And then, I mean, that's where another skill that has to be there. You have to be able to separate out all that like rambling and the light ADHD distractions that might happen in the conversation to pull on what's important and ask the right questions. Those were like more functional things that brought us to it. I think ultimately we tried to write stuff ourselves. We looked at it. It just wasn't hitting the mark.
Yeah.
Saw across the water, across the river that we could be close, but we don't know how to build a bridge.
Yeah.
And so I think that was one of the big things.
And I would say that is extremely common. Like that is probably 90%, if not 100% of the people that come to me. They say, I've tried to do this, but I'm too close to it. I don't think that it's very good. I know that I'm a decent writer. Most of them say, like, I'm a decent writer. I don't know why I can't do this.
Yeah.
I think people tend to want to write all of the information. They want to be able to include everything, but that doesn't lead to good copy. Like we've already said, brevity is really, really a huge piece of this. Yeah. Typically, they come to me because they've already tried it themselves or they've already put it through ChatGPT. Then they pick up StoryBrand. Typically, they find StoryBrand. They say, oh, this is what I've been missing is this thing that, okay, I'm going to try to do it. They try to do it. It's really bad. They know that it's really bad because they know what's good. They can see it. They start in the search. Yeah. Because it's like I'm come to the end of my rope. I can't keep spending hours upon hours on writing and rewriting and staring at a blank page and like writing is a slog. Even if you even if you say that like I'm a good writer, it's a slog. If you know that it's not good, like it's not great. Yeah. Or it's not what it could be.
And it's so interesting, and I think maybe people lump together the data, especially if you're working at a computer all day, right? Like, and if you're spending most of your day emailing people, messaging people, you're writing all day. Yeah. But that's not the same as copywriting.
Yes.
And, but like, I think a lot of people could they're like, oh, I write all day. I communicate all day.
And I'm a good writer. I'm a good writer. Yeah. I am not saying that you're not. Yeah. You're just not a copywriter, and that's okay.
It might be a little humbling for a lot of people to hear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In your job, do you feel like you are the one working with a lot of these marketing teams of one, and maybe it's just a business owner who is purely that they're doing that on top of all the other things?
Yes. I am often talking to the business owner operator who is in the trenches. Yeah. And they are wearing all of the hats.
So every moment that they're taking trying to do this themselves is taking them away from making another sale, helping get their HR things in order.
And I would say that a lot of the time they don't see the value in it because they don't value their own time in the same way, or they don't see their time as dollars all the time. Yeah.
Which is such a funny thing.
It is. It's a really interesting concept that everything you do is you can place a dollar amount on that. Yeah. It's going to be an investment. Yep. But you're going to make that back if you spend 10 hours of this. 10 hours on this, which you're probably going to spend a lot more than that if you keep rewriting and rewriting and rewriting it. Yep. At what point was it worth it?
I would be willing to bet a lot of the people, we see it on some things too, like people have struggled for so long.
They've jumped on Canva. They've tried
all the different things, right?
And there.
You're probably like, and they're just like,
that's me. I'm sitting there and I know that it's bad. I know that this is bad.
I think there's a weird mental block when you get to people trying to talk about themselves and promote themselves. Like I feel it very much so. Like, I don't know if it's because of working with different clients where it seems way easier to like as an outsider, like distill down that person that's not me. I can make very snap decisions about but turn it inside, look at the mirror and try and do those same things here. I guess there's so many other entanglements there of considerations. I think a lot of people have that like weird block up into that, back to the whole thing, getting that outside perspective. It's going to help reduce you spinning your wheels and like banging your head against the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've really enjoyed our conversation. Is there anything like, how can people get a hold of you? How can they, when they need brand messaging help?
When you realize,
how do they reach out to you?
When you realize that you have written yourself into a hole so many times, go to Felty, FELTY.co, and send me a message.
Yeah.
You can also send me a message on Instagram. I will check it. I just won't always promise that the content is totally up to date. So, because I
awesome.
have a child,
Yeah.
a young child.
Yep. Which, priorities, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a season,
Yeah.
as they say.
Yeah.
It's a season.
My wife has a sticker on her Tumblr that my girls got for her. It says, "In my mom era." And
I am
feels
in my
very-
mom era.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she proudly
Yep.
walks around with that.
Yeah,
So,
that's me.
yeah.
Hit me up.
Yeah. And read all the articles on sitcom.
On the
The
blog.
marriage of sitcom and brand messaging together in one
Yes.
is just fantastic.
If you're a fan of The Good Place, Ted Lasso, The Office, all those you will like,
Yep.
and have some sort of interest in brand messaging, then it's going to be for you.
Yep.
And I think you're going to like it. And if you have any other questions, again, hit me up.
Thanks for coming, Jill. This has been great.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
Love
thanks.
it.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information and other episodes, subscribe to the Marketing Team of One podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify podcast networks. You can also chat with us on the r/Marketing Team of One subreddit or visit marketingteamofone.com to learn more.